Welcome back to the Daily Thunder podcast. I'm John Napier, publisher of Daily Thunder, and I'll be your host today. Alongside me is Daily Thunder beat writer Brandon Rahbar. Brandon, how's it going this week?
Doing well. Fresh, awesome Thunder news this morning. Brandon Carlson signed to another 10-day contract. Thunder Suns on February 5th flex to national TV. So excited to do a pod with you today, John.
Well, it was quite a week of Thunder basketball. I'd say it was a good week for the Shai for MVP campaign. Maybe not the best week for the J-Dub for All-Star campaign.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair statement. You know, SGA, especially since the Cavs game is included in this week. I mean, that was a moment, I think, for the SGA for MVP campaign. And when you add that to the Celtics game from a couple weeks ago, Shai is building some of those kind of Heisman moments for his MVP case. Bummed that Jalen Williams missed the last game with an injury. Hopefully he's back either tonight or definitely tomorrow versus the Mavs, hopefully.
Well, let's talk about the Thunder-Cavs rematch. That first game in Cleveland was an epic clash. It was a close back-and-forth game throughout. The Cavs just had a little bit more offense down the stretch to pull that one out. But the game in Oklahoma City, the much-hyped rematch, was a Thunder blowout. So it's a great way to start this podcast because as a Thunder fan, I'm not sure you could feel much better about the team and its title prospects than you did after the Thunder just wiped out the Cavs 134 to 114. A big part of that was Shai. Shai scored 40 points in just 29 minutes. He was perfect from the free throw line. It was what I would consider an MVP level performance. What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, 40 points in under 30 minutes against the best team at that point in the NBA, at least the best record in the NBA. What a performance on national TV, TNT. Everybody's buzzing about it. I mean, it really is like one of those, you need moments. You need like games on national TV, hyped up games, hyped up matchups, and this was that for SGA. And this was a game, you know, when you found out that Isaiah Hartenstein was going to be out for this game, so the Thunder were going to have to face off versus Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen without Hartenstein or Chet. And you only found this out the day before. And so I think everybody, like the consensus was, well, okay, the Thunder, no chance they're going to beat the Cavs without Hartenstein or Chet. And so not only to win this game, but to dominate this game. And not only to dominate this game, John, but to dominate in such a fashion with small ball that you actually play Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley off the floor. I don't think anybody expected that except maybe the 15, 16 guys in that locker room on the OKC side. That was an impressive, I think the most impressive performance of the season for OKC.
I don't think it's a leap to call it the most impressive performance because it was that. I'm glad you mentioned the Isaiah Hartenstein injury. So it was a pretty big bummer when the news was announced. And again, with the way that the Cavs were controlling the paint with Mobley and Allen inside in the first game against the Cavs, I certainly thought this was a very tall task for the Thunder to compete against the Cavs. And what blew me away is the Thunder did it thanks to Shai's offensive brilliance, but also they defended incredibly really well without any interior defense, or at least interior size. And as you noted, they played so good with the small ball. They forced the Cavs to try to play small ball too, and the Cavs just cannot compete in small ball the way the Thunder do. But it started like this right off the bat. The Thunder outscored the Cavs 32-14 in the first quarter, and then they exploded offensively with 43 in the second. All the Cavs kind of ticked a little bit more offensively in that second quarter. But the Thunder just locked the Cavs down from the very beginning, and I think one of the most epic runs in the game was that 30-2 run from late in the first quarter to the early second quarter. They were forcing turnovers, they were scoring at will, and they were making life really difficult for the Cavs. Run us through that 30-2 run, and how did it feel in the arena? Because it was like a blink of the eye, and the Thunder were up big.
Yeah, it really was like playoff like in the Paycom Center that night, all night, really from the tip. It was that way, but especially during that 30-2 run, like every single stop that the Thunder got, and then every single bucket that the Thunder got, like the crowd just seemed to get louder and louder, more and more into it. I know I kept updating on Twitter, like, okay, they're in the middle of an 18-2 run. Oh, make that a 21-2 run. Make that a 24-2 run. And it just kept going. And it's like, how long is this going to go for? It was just absurd because this Cavs team is the number one offense in the NBA. Yes, the Thunder have the number one defense, but they're doing this without Hartenstein or Chet. I think, by the way, that home crowd did play a big part in this game. Like, obviously, Shai was the biggest factor. The defense was the second biggest factor. Lou Dort, going to have to mention him. He was huge. And my man, Brandon Carlson, during that 30-2 run, Brandon Carlson, fresh off signing a 10-day contract, hit 2 3-pointers in this run. And the crowd loved it. You could feel that they knew that this was a guy, like the only 7-footer on the floor, and like, hey, if this guy can play, maybe we got something here. And maybe the Thunder do have something in Carlson. Like, I'm not saying he's not a Chet or Hartenstein replacement, but he's not a bad, break the glass in case of emergency guy. Anyways, it was fun to see him play so well during that run. The Thunder were just lighting up. They couldn't miss until the fourth quarter. But during that run, that 30-2 run, they couldn't miss, and they were just shutting off everything the Cavs wanted to do on the other end. And shout out to Lou Dort, by the way. 22 points on the night, 6 of 9 from 3. He was big during that run and held Donovan Mitchell to 8 points on 3 of 15 shooting. That's back-to-back games now where Lou Dort just completely shut down Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, it was all-around great performance. Dort, again, shutting down Mitchell was a pretty big difference maker in this game. And I got so much joy seeing Brandon Carlson play and play well. Speaking of Brandon Carlson, he got, as you noted at the top of the show, a second 10-day contract. However, this is the last 10-day contract he can get. What are your predictions on what happens to Brandon Carlson after the next 10 days?
Yeah, so, some of this depends on, Hartenstein's progress. None of this will be based on Chet's progress because we still have 3 to 5 weeks, for the next update as far as Chet goes. But I do think that they'd like to keep Carlson around. The Raptors, he was one of their last cuts. Like, there was a solid chance he was making that Raptors team this year. I know a lot of the beat writers and fans were upset to see Carlson go, so they think he can play. And, in the limited sample we've seen in the G League and now with the Thunder, I think he can play. He can definitely shoot. He can grab some boards, and he can block some shots at 7 feet. So I think they have something with him. I think that he's a really nice kind of, emergency big or, definitely like a rotation big if you need him with Chet and Hartenstein out. I've seen I'll be honest with you, there's some sort of rules like as far as like, okay, so he was signed with the team, he was cut, signed back to 2 10-day contracts. Like, can you sign A.J. Mitchell, convert him to a standard contract, and then sign Brandon Carlson to a 2-way contract? I'll be honest, John, I'm trying to figure out with this new CBA what the rule is on that. I'm not sure yet. If that's an option, I think the Thunder would go with that option, put him on a 2-way, and that ensures you for the rest of the regular season. He wouldn't be able to play in the playoffs, but at least through the rest of the season with Hartenstein and Chet out right now, that would be an option. And if you can't do that, then I'm very curious to see what happens if he were to get a standard contract and what that would mean with A.J. Mitchell and possible consolidation.
Yeah, because he really has played well, and we'll talk about his performance in some of the other games this week because he has been getting actual first quarter minutes with both Chet and Hart out, and he's performed well. Now, he's certainly not as dominant as a shot blocker as Chet. He doesn't pass like Hart, but he shoots the ball well. And like we've talked about the way that AJ Mitchell plays as a rookie, he just doesn't make mistakes. He kind of knows his role is not to dominate the game, just try to end up in the right spot. And when you're open, take shots. And he's done that extraordinarily well. And right off the bat against the Cavs, he did that. And it looked like maybe the Thunder had a little bit of something to at least combat the size that Cleveland had until the Thunder could extend that lead where it was all small ball, and the Thunder just sort of ran away with it.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And again, Carlson, I've just been impressed that the Thunder are able, AJ Mitchell, you mentioned him, second round rookie, comes in, contending team, best team in the West, everybody's finals favorite. Nobody thought he could get minutes. Boom. They found a guy in the second round who was a really nice bench piece in the rotation from the jump. They find Brandon Carlson. Oh, Chet's out, Hartenstein's out. Here's a guy on a 10-day contract. And he comes in and he plays big, important minutes in the first quarter against the Cavs on national TV. Just really, really impressive how the Thunder are finding these guys and how these guys are ready to step up and play in all these big moments.
Well, I just continue to be impressed by the defense. Again, the Thunder held Cleveland to a season low 14 points. That's the lowest scoring first quarter Cleveland's had all season. They countered that really solid defense with extraordinary offense. They had 75 points, Thunder did, at the break. And then I expected the Cavs, again, with all their offensive firepower, to make at least some kind of run, close the gap a little bit. And then that third quarter, the Thunder did just more of the same. They wouldn't let the Cavs get back in it. What do you think the mindset was for the team to stay that locked in with that big halftime lead to build on it in the third quarter?
I think the Thunder, I know that they have a 0-0 mentality, 1-82 mindset, and they truly believe that and play that out. That said, there was obviously some extra juice for this game. You could feel it in the arena. You could feel it from the players. You could feel it from the crowd. And I think that they were just locked in. Like, it didn't matter that they were already up big at halftime. They were coming out in the second half, and they were going to keep playing the way they were playing. Like, I don't think that they needed any sort of, worry about taking the foot off the gas or anything like that. They were locked in, and I think that was the whole point. Plus, maybe there's some motivation. Like, Shai knew he probably wasn't going to get to play the fourth quarter, seeing what the score was. So it's like, I better make an impact while I can. Like, the fact that Shai and Jada both didn't get to play the fourth quarter is absurd. And by the way, I do want to, I want to throw out some props to J-Dub because my man starts and plays against Evan Mobley, a true 7-footer, and he goes for 19 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, a plus 29 in the game, 8 of 14 from the field. So it's not necessarily a box score that jumps out at you until you look at those stocks and see what he did defensively and know that his primary assignment all night was Evan Mobley. Just totally impressed, especially by SGA, J-Dub, and Lou Dort against the Cavs. The whole team, but especially those 3 guys.
Well, I just looking at the numbers here, and I need a calculator because the numbers are so big, but it's insane. The Thunder scored in the second and third quarter combined 87 points. 87 points in 2 quarters. That is insane.
Yeah, that is wild.
Yeah.
And then, and for all the talk about the Cavs offense, because it's the number 1 offense in the league, they also have a very good defense. So to put up those kind of numbers against that Cavs defense is incredibly impressive.
Now, the fourth quarter, I was disappointed that the lead, the finishing score was a 20-point win when it probably could have been a 30 or 40-point win. There were some guys who wanted to get some shots up. In particular, Adam Flagler wanted to get his. I could tell that both the bench and the fans wanted Flagler to get one, and Flagler was intent on delivering, but he didn't. I don't know. How did you feel in that fourth quarter?
You know what? I'll be honest. I just felt bad for Flagler. I was really wanting him to hit one. He went 0 for 8 from 3 in 5 minutes. 7 minutes. I'm sorry, 7 minutes. He went 0 for 8 from three. Yeah, he is a good shooter. I know that Flagler is a good shooter. We've seen it. My man could shoot. That was not a proper representation of how he can shoot. But yeah, those numbers got tanked. Like what that game could have done to the net rating for both of these teams. And the Thunder were shooting like above 40%. I think they were shooting like 43% going into the fourth quarter. And it got tanked to 34% because of that fourth quarter marksmanship that was on display. So, Flagler, I just felt bad for him. That's all I'll say. I felt bad for him. I know he can shoot.
Well, before we move on to the following night game against the Mavericks, since we're shouting out pretty much the whole team because everybody played really, really impressively. Caruso had a great game. He was his usual hustle self, but I mean he was perfect from 3-point. He had 2 of 2 from three. Isaiah Joe continued his hot shooting. He was 4 of 7 from three. So it really was a full team effort. Almost everybody was hitting their shots, contributing on both the offense and defense. And if you take away Adam Flagler's 0 of 8 from three, it was a pretty good night shooting.
It was. It really, really was. It was a team effort. I mean, headlined by SJ, Dort, J-Dub, and Brandon Carlson, but the total team effort against the Cavs.
Well, and as I noted going into this game, all the power rankings had the Cavaliers number 1, Oklahoma City number 2. Everything has been flipped, even after the Thunder lost to the Mavs. I think there's universal consensus that the Thunder are the best team in the NBA right now.
Yeah, and that's you can see it like online, the official NBA.com, power rankings, like all the analysts, talking heads. There does seem to be a consensus that the Thunder are the best team right now. And, and it's not just OKC media or OKC fans saying it anymore. And also, they're also very aware of the fact that, hey, they're doing this without Chet Holmgren, without Isaiah Hartenstein for a big chunk of the season, Caruso out for the big chunk of the season. So I still think Celtics, Cavs, either of those two teams are clearly the two best teams in the East, but the Thunder are head of the class, easily the best team in the West, and it seems like these three teams at this point, with the Nuggets catching fire lately, credit to them, the Mavs fully healthy will still be a force to be reckoned with, Grizz are an X factor, but Thunder at this point, without being 100% healthy, still seem to be the best team in the NBA.
Well, the Thunder followed up that epic performance with a game against the Mavs in Dallas. Before the game, it was announced that Shai would be out with a sprained right wrist. Sadly, after the game, you could see the Cavs game, it was, iced up pretty heavily. And in the post-game interview, he said he was going to be fine. Guess not fine. He was held out of this game. And Jalen had that great game against the Cavs. This was an opportunity maybe for him to be the guy, could really add some good material to his All-Star campaign. But he probably had he didn't have a great performance, and the team as a whole did not have a great performance. And they lost one to the Mavs, who, despite having Irving, are still pretty banged up. They didn't have Luka. They didn't have Lively. And this one felt bad.
Yeah, this one was a bummer coming off, all the fun and hype and buzz from that Cavs game. First of all, it is the second night of a road back-to-back. So the Thunder have traveled to Dallas right after beating the Cavs. And you don't have Shai. First time all season, you don't have Shai. The Mavs still have a lot of size. Even without Lively, even without Luka, you still have Daniel Gafford, P.J. Washington, Omax, Kleber, Dwight Powell. But let's be honest, this game, old MJ Washington goes for 16 points, 2 of 4 from 3, 6 of 8 from the field, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Let me tell you what P.J. Washington has done in the games preceding and since this game. It's the only game where he shot 50% or higher from the field in his last 6 games. Only game where He shot 50% from three in the last 6 games. There's something about P.J. Washington against the Thunder. Yes, J-Dub struggled from the field. I think he took a lot of shots that he usually takes. A lot of them were just, misses that, we see him make those a lot of times. But really unfortunate because I do think that Jalen Williams, and we saw it last year when Shai missed some games, I think that Jalen can still perform at a high level when he's the number one guy. I think it's just rough to do it on the second night of a back-to-back. And the Thunder, more than anything, this will be my kind of the big point, the Thunder don't have any bigs. And they were able to do that, what they did against the Cavs, which I think surprised everybody. But you were at home, first night of a back-to-back, and you had Shai to keep the offense humming. And guys were hitting shots. Not having any bigs against this Mavs team, Mavs at home, got hot. It kind of is what it is. Bummer performance after that win against the Mavs. Or Cavs. Mavs.
Yeah, and it really got ugly for the Thunder in that second quarter. They were outscored 41-17 after they had a first quarter 26-22 lead. And the Thunder couldn't hold on to the ball. It was very uncharacteristic in that quarter in the turnovers. I think they had 15 total turnovers in the game, which led to 29 Mavericks turnovers. But I think in the second quarter alone, they had 8 turnovers, which is just not how the Thunder play. And that's with Shai and without Shai. And you noted that Jalen Williams kind of being the guy. He's shown that he can do that with the sort of that second tier minutes, right? Because when Mark Dagnall staggering SGA and Jalen Williams will often lead the bench and be the primary ball handler, and he does pretty well in those minutes. But I don't know what it was tonight. Maybe it was matching up against the quote starters for the Mavericks, or he just had an off night and happened to coincide in the night that Shai wasn't there. It was an off night for Jalen Williams, and that second quarter was ugly.
Yeah, this really came down to the second quarter, and I say that the Thunder were down 20 points at halftime, and they actually retook the lead in the third quarter, which I thought was really impressive. So, obviously, the Thunder lose this game. That's a bummer, especially with, all the Mavs-Thunder rivalry stuff that's building, more and more each matchup. And there's a lot of dust-ups in this game. It was a hard-fought game, and I was impressed that the Thunder came back from 20 points down. And not only did they take the lead back, they did it in the third quarter alone. But then that fourth quarter happened, and the game just got away from them, and the Mavs executed better down the stretch. And this is a game, I know Luka's out and I know Lively's out, but you still have Kyrie Irving, you still have Klay Thompson, you have Gafford, you have P.J. Washington, who we all know is M.J. Washington versus the Thunder. Spencer Dinwiddie, kind of low-key, also really gets up for Thunder games, shoots better than he normally does against the Thunder. Quentin Grimes has been pretty solid for them this season as well. So the game just got away from him in the fourth quarter after taking the lead back. Is it because it was on the second night of a back-to-back? Is it because fourth quarter offense, looks so much different with Shai out? Probably a combination of all these things. So I think it's just one of those things. You can't take too much from it. I don't think there's any sweeping takes from this matchup. The Thunder didn't have Shai, Chet, Hartenstein. The Mavs didn't have Luka or Lively. So I think you just kind of flush it and move on. And especially since we're going to get to see this matchup again tomorrow in OKC.
Well, since you mentioned flushing it and moving on, I'd say that's what the Thunder did against the Nets. Now, they did have Shai back, but then J-Dub was out against the Nets. But the Nets aren't very good. Everybody knew that coming into the game. That's basically how the game went. Oklahoma City controlled it from the tip. They outscored Brooklyn 39-19 in the first quarter. Shai just looked like if he wanted to, he could have scored 100 points, but because he only played 3 quarters, he had just 27 points and 10 assists on the night. But it was an opportunity for the team to look at Cam Johnson. Probably not the best Cam Johnson game, but to me, he was the best player on the court for the Nets. What were your takeaways from this one?
Yeah, Cam Johnson was the best player for the Nets. It's funny because the Nets have been competitive. Obviously, they don't have a good record, and we've already seen them trade away Dennis Schroeder and Dorian Finney-Smith. But they still have guys. Like, they have at least a lot of guys that other teams want to trade for because they have good role players. Like, obviously, Cam Johnson, but also D'Angelo Russell, Daron Sharp, Noah Clowney, Zaire Williams, Nick Claxton. Like, they've got some players, and they've been competitive. Like, the game prior to this was in L.A., and they only lost to the Lakers by 1 point. They were in that game, but, the Thunder just blew them out. The Thunder beat the teams they're supposed to beat. And they're supposed to beat the Nets, even without J-Dub, Hartenstein, or Chet. And they did it handily. I mean, Shai's just too good, man. Like you said, he could have easily gone for 40 that night. He had 27. He also had 10 assists. His playmaking was on display that night. 4 steals. So just a crazy three-quarter box score for Shai. Isaiah Joe, though, my biggest takeaway was against Cam Johnson and the Nets of all teams and against all players, Isaiah Joe ties his career high in 3 points made, 8 of 10 from 3, a record he set, by the way, 9 days prior against the Knicks. So he really has it out for these New York-based teams. Isaiah Joe goes for 24 points in 22 minutes, 8 of 10 from 3. And he's been the guy most, kind of linked to the Nets in a possible trade for Cam Johnson because of, salary matching purposes. It would have to be him or Aaron Wiggins, or maybe you could cobble together enough salary if you do Kenrich Williams, Topic, and Zhang, but the Thunder aren't going to do that, by the way. I'm not saying they're not going to trade for Cam Johnson, but I personally don't think Topic is even a possibility. So my big takeaway was Isaiah Joe goes out there and shoots the lights out against Cam Johnson. I just thought it was ironic and funny.
Yeah, I guess the timing of his recent hot shooting is a little bit suspect, but Isaiah Joe's been on one lately. I mean, he's been shooting really, really well, and it looked like maybe he was trying to set a career high. He was 8 of 9 before he missed one late in the game, before he was pulled in the fourth quarter. He couldn't miss. So between Shai and Joe, which was a revisit of what the Thunder did against the Knicks, like when those two guys are firing on all cylinders, the offense is really, really good.
Yeah, it really, really is. And that's the thing. Isaiah Joe, like, I've never thought that, I don't think that Isaiah Joe should be going anywhere in any sort of trade because he can be such a huge X factor. Like, when Isaiah Joe is on, this Thunder offense can go to another level because he's their only, like, volume, movement shooter. And we've seen Isaiah Joe. He's been a 40% plus guy for the Thunder on volume each of his seasons here. And, he was slumping part of the season, but my man didn't forget how to shoot. He's proven it. He's all of a sudden up to 38.8% on the season. So that's just who Isaiah Joe is. He's a great gravity guy. He's a great outlet for Shai. He provides so much spacing. And he can swing a game, and he could possibly, if he gets hot, he could possibly swing a series. I don't think the Thunder are going to trade for Cameron Johnson. They could. They absolutely could. I'm not saying that they're not going to. Nobody knows. But if they were to, I personally would not include Isaiah Joe in that trade. If anything, think of the possibilities with Isaiah Joe plus Cam Johnson on this Thunder team instead of Cam Johnson minus Isaiah Joe.
Yeah, well, a lot of the thought on the reason the Thunder should trade for Cam Johnson is they need that third ball handler to come off of the bench or to get the team through the non-Shai minutes. You have J-Dub, who can be that other primary ball handler and initiate the offense. And in the playoffs, I guess you can make an argument that would be really useful, but you can also make an argument that if you just stagger the minutes right, that you don't need a Cam Johnson, and maybe what Isaiah Joe brings to the table, if he's shooting really well, is more valuable to the team as constructed.
Yeah, absolutely. He's such, I think, a valuable piece because of what he brings on court with his shooting, with his spacing, with his gravity as an outlet. If you look like historically, every season, like his plus minus and the minutes played with Shai, like the net rating is always incredibly high with those two guys. Shai obviously loves playing with him. And then, like kind of the unspoken thing in here, he's on a great contract. He signed a team-friendly contract. And when we're building around Shai, Dub, and Chet, when Maxes and Super Maxes kick in and you need like quality depth pieces coming off the bench like Isaiah Joe, and you have him on $12 million a year for multiple years, incredibly valuable when you're constructing and building this contender.
I also wanted to highlight Jalen Williams, J-Will's performance. He had a really nice game in this one. I think his performances have kind of been up and down. He's having to play more minutes than maybe you would like to have J-Will play because of the injuries, but this was a really good J-Will performance.
Yeah,
he had 5 assists. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. 14 points, and like you said, 5 assists, and like you were probably about to say, his playmaking was awesome this game, and I think he's kind of like Hartenstein, like, you know, as far as his playmaking from the center position and looking for guys at the top of the key and looking for cutters, and he also went 6 of 9 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3. 8 rebounds. He was a plus 23. Just all around a really, really nice game for J-Will.
Yeah, Aaron Wiggins also had a nice game. He had 5 assists. Look, the ball's really swinging really well for the team because the Thunder had 37 assists this game. You had Shai, who had 10. J-Will had 5. Wiggins had 5. But a lot of just good passing. Caruso had 3. Dort and Wallace also had 3 assists. So really just a complete offensive performance for the Thunder to run away from a team that they are definitely better than. I also want to highlight some solid minutes from Brandon Carlson in the first quarter. He also hit a couple more threes, grabbed some rebounds. Yeah, Carlson's a player.
Yeah, 3 straight games Carlson played like real minutes, like non-garbage time, first quarter minutes, and he's played well. I also want to shout out, by the way, Ousmane Dieng real quick, because he's had a couple of really nice performances in a row. Small sample size, but Dieng went for 12 points against the Nets on 5 of 8 shooting, 2 of 4 from 3. His last 2 misses from 3 were just kind of like garbage time, just chunking up shots type threes. But his last 2 games, he scored 8 points as soon as he came off the bench and checked in his first few minutes. So, you know, I'm not saying that Dieng is going to be a part of the rotation or anything like that, but shout out to Dieng because he's played well lately, and I wanted to highlight it.
Yeah, I like that you said that. He did have a really nice game. To close, when we talk about the Nets, though, I have one more question. Is Alex Dukas the greatest three-point shooter in NBA history?
Let me tell you something, John. My man goes 3 of 3 from 3 in 5 minutes. No text on Shai this time, by the way. He stayed in his seat. If you, put that out to per 36, he would shoot 21 of 21 from 3 for 63 points per 36. I think there's an argument to be made. He is the GOAT shooter.
Yeah, I don't think any of his shots even hit the rim.
No, they all were they all ripped the nets. They were all pure. He can seriously shoot. I don't know how to feel about him wearing number 88, but my man can shoot.
Well, given our props to Dukas, he is shooting 50% from 3 on the season. So I just start to wonder if he's, Oklahoma City's secret weapon off the bench, and I'd like to see him and Isaiah Joe get into a 3-point contest.
Yeah, no, really though, I know we joke, and it is a joke, but the Thunder just find these guys. This guy would probably be playing. This guy could have played some real minutes with those Russ PG Carmelo teams, like Alex Dukas, 6'7", coming off and hitting threes off the bench. It would have been nice would have been nice in 2016 as well.
Yeah, it's actually kind of amazing because the Thunder are the youngest team in the NBA, and you have these end-of-the-bench players who are getting the garbage time minutes. And in a lot of teams, maybe it is a young rookie or it's a journeyman who's playing. But the Thunder have so many of these either second-round undrafted players who are playing really well. Carlson, Dukas is hitting shots in the minutes, and then, of course, A.J. Mitchell was playing really well this season. What a testament to the drafting of the Thunder and finding maybe some late round undrafted gems who, if you need to break in case of emergency, you can drop Carlson in there and he's going to play good minutes for you.
Yeah, it's crazy when you look up and down the Thunder roster and see how many guys were either second round picks or undrafted. How many guys came from the G League? I mean, like we're talking Alex Caruso, Lou Dort, Mark Daignault. like the Thunder's, scouting and their player development has been really, really impressive throughout this rebuild.
And that must be why, with the win, Daignault secured the coaching responsibilities, or at least one of the four teams in the NBA All-Star game. So we'll get to see multiple Thunder participants in All-Star Weekend, regardless of whether J-Dub makes the team. But as an update here, the latest voting that came out, it was about a week ago, so we're waiting until the next round. I think voting is concluded for the All-Star game. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. And in the last round of voting, Shai led all guards in the Western Conference by a huge margin over Steph Curry, and Jalen Williams secured or stayed locked into that seventh spot in the front court. So probably I'd say your odds of him making the team are still the same, about 50-50. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I say it's 50-50. I actually, not to, self-promote here, but I did just write a story for Daily Thunder about J-Dub's All-Star candidacy, and I actually labeled it as a true 50-50. Like, I really think it's a coin flip thing. Coaches really like to reward number one seeds with multiple players, and I think that could be kind of a big tiebreaker for him. Like, I think he's earned an All-Star nod, especially when you factor in his defense. Like, I think his All-NBA defensive play on that end, plus the Thunder's running away with a one seed, I feel like they could be the tiebreaker that gets him the spot. But there's a lot of really good candidates. There's going to be some big time snubs. So 50-50.
A few more games for J-Dub to try to impress the media and the coaches in the voting. Let's look ahead to the next few games. Tonight, the Thunder host the Jazz. Jazz are not very good, so I'm not sure there's a whole lot to talk about in this game other than will J-Dub play, and what do you think about the Jazz's trade of their 3 first-round picks to the Suns?
Yeah, I think those are the two big storylines for sure. I'm bummed out that Cody Williams just got hurt his last game because this was setting up for the first J-Dub versus C-Dub game, and now it looks like they might both be out. J-Dub could play. I almost feel like since there's going to be a back-to-back and the Thunder play the Mavs tomorrow, maybe J-Dub gets one more night of rest since it is the Jazz, and the Jazz will do anything in their power to give away a game. So maybe J-Dub, since C-Dub isn't playing, takes the night off and we see him tomorrow. Hopefully, that's what I'm hoping for. At least we see him tomorrow. And then, I thought this was a really smart trade on the Jazz's part. They kind of took some inspiration from OKC and Sam Presti. They're taking some low-value first-round picks and trading those for a future high-reward, high-potential, high-upside pick for that 2031 Suns pick. Like, who knows? 2031, the Suns have traded away all their first-round picks, and they're going all in on, an older KD, and it looks like an older Jimmy Butler, and who knows if Devin Booker is still around by then. So you're getting an unprotected pick in 2031 that could be really, really good, and you're almost guaranteeing that the 3 first-round picks you're giving up in this trade are low value because it's the whole least favorable thing of multiple picks. So I think it's a really smart Thunder-ish trade on the Jazz's part. But I also get it from the Suns side. You got to do something. They're in no man's land right now, so why not go all in? Mortgage the future. They've already done that anyway, so what's one more pick, right? Like, try to do it while you still have KD and Booker together, I guess.
Yes, that's right, but I was jealous of the trade. I was like, why couldn't the Thunder have done it? Because they have the assets to do it, and I don't know if Phoenix was not willing to do it with Oklahoma City or the Jazz just, had better picks that they wanted, or I don't know what it was, but I was jealous.
I'll say this. I think the Thunder have better picks to give. Like, those picks that the Jazz gave up are truly not very valuable. Like, we're talking about, like, picks that could be in the late 20s, given that they're the least favorable. And the Thunder, I guess they could do the whole least favorable in some years where it looks like it'll be like a Thunder pick. So I guess they could have kind of matched that. But a lot of theirs are, like right now, that 76ers and pick looks great. That Heat pick looks great. That Jazz pick probably doesn't hold a whole lot of value because it may not convey. So yeah, I probably the least valuable would be the Thunder's own picks.
Well, the Thunder get their rematch against the Mavs tomorrow night, so it's a back-to-back, a home back-to-back. Now, the Thunder trail the Mavs in the season series 2-1 with the last loss in Dallas. So this is an important game, I guess, to get that series split for the season. There will be no Luka. It was also announced that Lively's going to be out for some amount of time. So the Mavs are hurting right now. This is a game that I would expect the Thunder to win. But maybe the question I have is the Mavs have been so unhealthy this season, but they've got a lot of talent. If they can turn it on at the right time, end up with that 9-10 seed, you probably give them a good chance if they're healthy to win the play-in. Could we be looking at a Thunder Mavs first round matchup?
That would be wild because I think that kind of the general consensus and my feeling as well is that at full strength, when both teams are healthy, these are the two best teams in the West. And that would be regardless of whether it's the Thunder at the 1 seed or let's say like the Grizz or Nuggets or Rockets at the 2 seed and let's say the Mavs are the 7 seed, that is an awful reward for being like the 1 or 2 seed. And if the Thunder were to draw the Mavs, the team that, it's becoming, I think, the Thunder's biggest rival, you could argue, I think the Spurs or Rockets, but I think it's becoming the Mavs, I think, clearly. That would be, just such a terrible reward for a team that may run away with the number 1 seed. It would be by far the most hyped and anticipated first round matchup. And then I guess it kind of goes into like how healthy are both teams. Like, is Lively even back? He's supposed to be out 2 to 3 months. If they're fully healthy, I think that'd be a nightmare scenario. I still think the Thunder are better. I still think the Thunder would obviously be favored in that series if both teams are healthy, but that would still be just a terrible draw in the first round.
Totally agree. Well, the last game of the week is Sunday's game against the Blazers in Portland. When we talked about the Blazers before the Thunder's first game against them, or maybe it was the second game, the one in Oklahoma City, Portland was playing okay. I think they were 6-8 leading into that November 20 game, but kind of turns out maybe the Blazers aren't that good. They are on a 2-game win streak. Hopefully, we have Jada back, have Shai playing. If that's the case, I don't see how the Thunder don't run away with this one.
Yeah, I think the Thunder. This schedule upcoming is a time where the Thunder could put some cushion for that 1 seed, provide some space, and hopefully Hartenstein comes back soon, and a chance for them to pick up some wins while they don't have any bigs. Shout out to Brandon Carlson. They do have a big on a 10-day contract, a second 10-day contract. But with Chet and Hart out, if you can pick up, you got this Nets win, then you got the Jazz, the Mavs without Luka and Lively, and then the Trailblazers. If you can go, 4 for 4, I think that's very, very doable without Hartenstein, and then hopefully you get Hartenstein back because after the Trailblazers, you get 2 days off before you face the Warriors. Man, that would be a really, really nice stretch for the Thunder if you can pick up all these wins. And yes, for sure, even though the Blazers have shown some life and they've been competitive, that's still a game. Even without Hartenstein, the Thunder should win if J-Dub is back.
We've run long, in part because I've just been so excited to talk to you about that Cavs game, and we spent a long time breaking that one down. But there's one last segment that I want to cover, and it's maybe a little bit of a game for you. So obviously, SGA is the leading contender for the MVP award. He's also been generating maybe a little bit of Defensive Player of the Year buzz. He actually leads the league in defensive win shares this season, so he's quite a stellar defender. He's not going to win it. Wemby's going to win it most likely. But I want you to make the case for why a Thunder player should win every NBA award category.
Ooh, fun. Okay, I like this.
So we'll start with Coach of the Year. Make the case for Mark Daigneault to be Coach of the Year.
The Thunder, even with the high expectations, are exceeding expectations, and they're doing this without Chet Holmgren for a big chunk of the season, without Hartenstein for a big chunk of the season, without Caruso for a big chunk of the season, without J. Will, without Kenrich, like a ton of injuries, and yet they're on pace for 70-ish wins this season. They are running away in a stacked West, and they may end up with the number one overall seed in the league, even over the Cavs and the returning champion Celtics. So that is the argument. They could be the best team in the NBA despite all these big injuries.
All right, Rookie of the Year. This one would have been a shoe-in for A.J. Mitchell, but Brandon Carlson's making a late run for this one. Who are you making the case for?
Oh, man. A.J. Mitchell won't qualify because of the games missed, which is a big bummer. So, yeah, all in on Brandon Carlson. Let's say that he gets signed to a standard contract and he plays some important minutes with Chet and Hartenstein out. The hype grows, and this is just like an underwhelming class. Jared McCain is out, unfortunately, for the season. He was kind of the leader in the clubhouse. Brandon Carlson, going to be on national TV on the number one team in the West. Going to pick up some acclaim and notice down the stretch.
Okay, I like it. Brandon Carlson for Rookie of the Year. His campaign just started on this podcast. Sixth Man of the Year.
Man, I don't even know which Thunder player I'd give that to. I guess I'll go with I will go with Aaron Wiggins, Sixth Man of the Year. The man saved basketball, and he's saved a couple of Thunder games. I think you could argue that the Thunder have a 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th man of the year. And so when you're competing not only against all the other 6 men of the year, but all the other 6 men on your own team, and yet you stand out with the numbers that Wiggins has put up when he plays, that's why he's the 6th man of the year.
Most improved player.
You know what? I will say Lou Dort for most improved player. Why? Because my man is playing with mallet finger, and he's still shooting a career high from 3. He's playing lockdown defense. I think his defense has been even better this season, and at least he's getting more acclaim and notice. And he's been kind of the underrated, I think, storyline of this season. So I would say he's improved three-point shooting and efficiency and improved elite defense to even better elite defense.
Okay, Defensive Player of the Year, and I think this one might be harder than it looks on paper because we talked about SGA, who's doing really, really well, but I think J-Dub is a dark horse for this one. Who's you going to give the award to?
Wait, what was the category? I'm sorry.
Defensive Player of the Year.
Defensive Player of the Year. You could argue Shai because of, like you said, his defensive win shares. You could argue Lou Dort, and I think he would be the Thunder's, kind of best option, like the most realistic option because he's shutting down the other team's number one each night. And I think he's probably the best candidate, but I already gave him most improved. So I'm going to give this to J-Dub because of his 1 through 5 defensive versatility. The fact that he has switched over and played well at center when the Thunder needed to. Number one defense in the league, by far the most diverse defender in the league, and he's playing at an elite level, and he's truly been a difference maker for the defensive side of the ball.
Well, the last one is MVP. You don't even have to make the case for Shai. So unless your answer isn't Shai, it's pretty obvious that he's the MVP not only of the Thunder, but of the league. I also wanted to highlight a few things about Shai and make my own case for him because he leads the league not only in defensive win shares, but also win shares. His on-off impact leads the league. The win probability added is plus 11.36 when he's on the court versus when he's off, which leads the league. The Thunder have a 122.1 offensive rating when he's on the court to just 106.8 when he's off. And then you saw what happened when he wasn't playing. He has a tremendous impact on the team, their ability to close out games, build big leads. Jokic is great, but I don't think there's anybody in the league who's playing as well as Shai, and I would give one of my kidneys to make sure Shai wins the MVP award this year. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, everything that you said, I mean, all the obvious reasons. He's leading the league in scoring despite, he's playing the fewest minutes of the top 15 scorers in the league. He's playing, 2.5 minutes less than Jokic is a night. When you look at the per 36 numbers, it boosts Shai up quite a bit. You wouldn't think that 2.5 minutes would make a big difference, but it does. Him sitting all those fourth quarters has made an impact. Also, look, raw numbers, points, let's say they're a wash. Rebounds, obviously Jokic is going to beat him there because he's a center. But then you have winning, like being the number one seed by a huge margin. So let's say that just washes out the rebounds. Then Jokic just beating him in assists. Obviously, he's a great playmaker. But then there's this whole other side of the ball, defense, where Shai has been elite. He's in conversations for Defensive Player of the Year, and Jokic has been a true negative on the defensive side of the ball. As great as he is, Jokic is great. He truly is. But let's say those things wash out. I think it's more than just raw numbers. When you look at impact on winning, and when you look at the fact that the Thunder have done this, and Shai has been the engine and the big reason why they are the number one seed, but despite being one of the youngest teams and despite all these injuries. And last thing I'll say, it's weird to me that there's this narrative going around that Jokic doesn't have any help, but that he's like on this terrible team, like with surrounding talent. Like, when did Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Russell Westbrook in a renaissance year, Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, when did they become like a terrible supporting cast? I'm not saying I know that there's been struggles with Murray up and down and Michael Porter Jr., but I think that narrative is silly, honestly. I think that he's still got a nice supporting cast. But yeah, Shai MVP, hands down this season.
Well, that's a great way to end this one. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Thunder podcast. I'm John Napier, host of the podcast, and he's Brandon Rahbar, Daily Thunder beat writer. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe to the Daily Thunder podcast wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss any future episodes. And please do leave us a rating and review, and we'll be back in your feed soon.